To begin with, I'd like to ask, how do you feel that modern society affects young people and their outlook on life today?
Hi, Brian. Hi, Brian. Thank you very much for inviting me. It's always really a pleasure to speak with young people. That's the young people that I work with. I've been working with young people over the last 25 years, and I really enjoy working with some of the most exciting and more interesting young people. So it's really an opportunity to share some of my thoughts about it. So regarding what do you mean by a modern society, probably that's the first thing that we can look at. My sense is that, perhaps, so one of the beautiful things about our modern societies is really given us an opportunity to look at things that people say to you, and see things that are seen as truths are no longer valid. You have to challenge new things, you can find new truths. You've been given science to look at it. So that's one first thing I would like to mention about a modern society and what it has given to young people. So you are the children of science. You don't have to believe in things that we have been told to you. You have to constantly challenge things. And one of the most beautiful things is over the last few centuries, when we look at last 10, 15 years, there is a lot of data available now. So you just have to look at your Google, you got information. So you don't have to take the wisdom as it is. You can challenge things. Even in your classrooms, you have an opportunity to ask questions and challenge things. So the curiosity is something that really makes us very different from all the other species. And for you, the modern society has given a beautiful tools to look at that. Lots of opportunities to look at the world in a different way and make changes. But also comes with a lot of responsibilities. Modern society, with our new knowledge of science, of our culture, our environment, also says that we have to be responsible. How do we really connect with the nature? How do we become responsible along with having rights? So I would say the outlook of our young people is really shaped by the scientific revolution, the new understanding about how things work. And also one of the key things that I would like to mention is that this is an area that I specialize in, looking at the brains of who we are. Now we can really look at our brains, even when we are alive. We can see what's going on there. We know a lot more about how brains develop as you are going through. And especially for when young people I'm speaking with, I would like to say to them that your brain is still a work in progress. A lot of opportunities there for you to change it. One thing that we learn from our new understanding of our society is that our brain is capable of change, and it's in your hands to change it. And for young people, since the progress, the change in the brain is still happening at a fast pace, there's a lot more opportunities for us to change the things that you want. Your hands, it is in your hands. You can change your destiny, you can change your brain, you can change your world. I think so when I talk about the responsibilities, we all are responsible for our children. And we, you, me, and the society and the world, the politicians, all of us are responsible for creating the environment for our young people. But then young people who have a responsibility to kind of make use of that opportunities and try to create a niche for themselves.
Absolutely.
Way of the world, because for me, that's the most important thing. The new brain sciences say very clearly that if you can make the changes, you can change your brain. That wasn't known up until about 20 years ago. Exciting part of it.
Okay, nice. Right, Mirza, the second question I've got for you is, what can the individual do themselves, or where should they go to, say, get advice, seek help if they are in some ways struggling with their mental health?
Okay, I'm just going to give you a couple of things that I would call the 5 pillars of health. This affects both your mental health and physical health. First of all, really important for us to make sure that you are eating properly. When I say eating properly, that means healthy food. Mostly, really, we have got a lot of understanding about how what we eat affects not only our mind, but also our body in significant ways. Yeah. Give you an example. White sugar is a processed food. White bread is a processed food. Ham is a processed food. So anything that's been processed can have bad effects for your health. And try to eat a healthy food and eat it on a regular basis. try to have a little bit of a rhythm for our body, because every cell in our body has got a bit of music. You need to really make sure that you are really connecting with that music and eating on a regular basis. That can make a big difference.
Absolutely.
That's about the food. The second pillar is really about doing some physical exercise, half an hour of any physical exercise that you really like. The third thing I would like to mention is making sure that you have a reasonably good sleep pattern. I know it's very difficult to stay away from our friends even after 11 o'clock, but you need to really find some way of putting some boundaries around that. So really creating a sleep pattern is very important. The fourth pillar is trying to learn to do some deep breathing exercises, which can actually help us to control our mind. And the fifth pillar is trying to learn to do some mindfulness exercises. I don't have the time to go into all details of that, but if anybody is interested, we can have another session. We can go into details of this. But the most important thing is when I talk about mindfulness, is really about learning to know more about your brain, learning to learn more about your, to be aware of that and make sense of it. Let me give you an example. We spend about 6 minutes brushing our teeth. Yeah, we take at least 10-15 minutes looking after our hair. We spend a lot of time looking after our skin, but our brain is our mind.
Yeah.
And we don't really spend any time looking after our mind.
Yeah.
So that's something that we really have to take some responsibility for. We have to look after our brain, and it doesn't take more than 5-10 minutes to do that. And there are plenty of information on YouTube for doing mindfulness exercises. And the other things that any young person can do is really about getting into a pattern of being grateful and understanding what we have. That's not something that we do in schools or in our homes anymore. So in our own faculties, for example, we can see, we can smell, we can hear, we can touch. All these faculties are alive. We don't really pay any attention to that. What we have is not something that we don't often think about. And exercise in the evening about what is really good about my life. Just having a moment to think about that can actually bring a lot of peace to that. Because most of our difficulties are about worrying about what we don't have. We live in a society where things are being thrown at you, and if you don't have it, you're not happy. Our happiness is kind of dictated by other people. So
externally, yeah.
You need to really start looking at things slightly differently. Then, first of all, like I would say, another important thing for me is really being able to appreciate what you're really good at. That's not something that we do very well as a species. None of us spend any time looking at what am I really good at? What have I done today that I feel good about? Because we are all quite capable of being very caring, compassionate, very curious. We are very creative, we are very artistic, but we do not reflect on that and try and say, oh, I am good at these things.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can spend about 5 minutes every day reflecting on these things and really making sure that you just spend 5 minutes looking at, okay, what have I done today, what I should be proud of, and just what kind of skills have I shown that every day, that can make a big difference.
I've got one more question before we start wrapping it up and stuff, Mirza. And that is, if I can just find it. This is a big question. And again, you kind of touched on it and stuff. This one is, what can schools, and this school in particular, Harris Morton Academy, what can schools do to help with teenage mental health?
I will kind of broaden it to say schools can do a lot for every child, every teenager, and every human being, because school is a social world. So by the time a child enters the school, they're actually moving from their social world, which was their family, into another social world. From the age of 5 until you leave school at the age of, let us say, 16, you are spending 15,000 hours. That's a lot of hours that you spend away from your family, along with your teachers, along with your colleagues, and that's where your society, your understanding, your values are built. So there is plenty of time for us to really work on that. I mean, that is, in fact, 15,000 hours, the name of a beautiful book written by my guru, mentor, Professor Sir Michael Rutter. He published books in the 1970s, where he has shown very clearly that even if you come from a very difficult background, family backgrounds, from very deprived family backgrounds, If the school is good, school believes in you, the school shows that they care, they can take care of you, you are going to do well in your lives. That's a beautiful piece of research that has been done so long ago. So I would say schools can do a lot. So some of the things that I mentioned earlier on about how do you really make sure that schools are a place where we focus on the pillars of health, or pillars of health for their mind and body. Because we have a lot of young people who are eating the wrong kind of food, having obesity, and a lot of health-related problems. We see a lot of young people who are having a lot of difficulties in terms of managing relationships, how to manage conflicts, a lot of young people getting into trouble as a result of drugs and alcohol. School is the place where we should be working together. And my personal belief is that school should be working very closely with the mental health services locally. And unfortunately, it is not happening as yet, which is always my dream. And we have to really work very closely with the teachers, can do a lot of it. For example, a piece of work that we have done in India showed that it is possible to change the curriculum for the PSHE. This is where we talk about the physical, social, and emotional health. And we change that into a manual where we can actually skill up these young people to really understand how to understand their own skills and abilities, how to help them dream about something to do in their lives, how can they learn to manage conflicts, how to understand emotions, how to say no to drugs and alcohol, how to develop social relationship. A lot of skill building can be done in schools. But I do understand that every teacher is constantly struggling to manage the curriculum, and the restraints of the curriculum does not allow them to do that. But it is really high time that as a society, we have to think about doing a lot more for our kids. And school is the best lab where we can actually build children of our future. Even when we are waiting for things to happen, we can do small things. For example, it doesn't take a lot for any schools to start a health club. I don't want to call it a mental or physical health, because it's always useful to think about a health club. And teachers can take a role in helping young people to create the health clubs and really become more aware of these things. And you can actually help them to learn more about their body, how to manage social relationships, and that can be very, very helpful. And you can always get people with expertise to come in and help with those kind of health clubs. I've been involved in that before personally. It's really quite a useful thing for us to think about doing things within the schools. For example, let me give you another example. Most of our schools have playgrounds in the evening that are never used, and many kids don't have a space to go out and play. They end up in the wrong streets and get into trouble. If you were to create a space where we can get some volunteers from around the schools, I'm talking about parents, people who are keen to come along and create a space where young people can come and play, do things together, that can make a big difference.
Yeah.
As I said earlier on, because one of the key things that we know from our brain science is that if you are able to kind of give young people positive experiences, those synapses, those connections, the brain gets strengthened. Because during the adolescent period, the brain is going through a lot of pruning. That means the brain connections that are not used will be lost totally. So if you are strengthening those connections, young people engaging in positive activities, helping others, doing volunteer work, and engaging in games, those synapses, those brain areas can be strengthened. And they become better future. They'll have a better future. They become better human beings for the world.
Yeah. So it's almost in a way, if they feel like they're part of a community and stuff, and they're communicating with others, socializing and stuff.
Absolutely.
People, parents and stuff from outside can get involved and stuff. Then that's also good for the actual mind and the mindfulness and the brain and all that kind of stuff. So it's all working together in a positive way.
Sure. Thank you.
Listen, Mirza, we have to wrap it up. We only have about half an hour for this presentation, but I would just like to say what you've just told me and we're going to share with the students and stuff is really, really useful.
And I want schools to be part of working together with people from our field so that we can really do something to improve the quality of life of our kids, our future.